Okay, this is so weird to me, the fact that I'm doing books and makeup on YouTube. That's just wild, but we're here and we're thriving, so I hope it's good. Hello book reading friends, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Melanie. Today I talk about books while I do my makeup. Again, also known as the books and makeup tags. I am super excited to be sharing both of my worlds with you guys today, gushing about books that I love, answering some fun questions for this tag while I do my makeup, which is a video that actually a lot of you have requested. I think this alongside a bookshelf tour are probably my most requested videos, so I hope you guys enjoy this one because I do know it's a little bit different, but I think it's a fun way to implement my profession into this channel. So yeah, essentially how the video goes is that every step of makeup, all the way from primer to lipstick, will have a specific question that I have to answer. If you have yet to subscribe to my channel, don't forget to do so down below for more bookish content. I am constantly uploading videos that I am sure you do not want to miss. I am also live streaming throughout the week, doing my weekly reading sprints. I do them both Wednesdays and Fridays. And you can also follow me on all of my social medias, which are always linked down below. I have an Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, and an Amazon wishlist. You guys know the drill. And yeah, without further ado, I really don't know how long this video is gonna be. Don't be scared. You're about to see me without some makeup on. So let's get right started to answering some questions while I do my makeup. All right, so I am incredibly nervous to film this video. I have never done anything makeup related on this channel, but a lot of you have been requesting the books and makeup tags, so it's time that I record this video. But if I can find the original creator, I will make sure to link them down below. For the first step, we have primer, which I particularly do not use. I prefer to use some prep, some moisturizer, some under eye moisturizer just to prep the skin thoroughly. Name a book that left a lasting impression on you. Now again, I'm gonna start with moisturizer. This is the CeraVe Facial Moisturizing Lotion. This is the PM version, so this is made for nighttime. Now the first book I want to talk about is of course Miss Crescent City by Miss Mass. It's right behind me. I think this book particularly left a lasting impression on me because of the friendship aspect. It is definitely the center point, the centerpiece of the story, and that was really beautiful to read about. Hunt and Bryce and Danica, whether they were all together on a scene or separate, they all just had such incredible moments that I can't help but constantly remember that book because of how great that relationship aspect was. The mystery, the plot twist, the characters, I think the world itself was so intriguing. It's definitely a book that lives in my heart and my brain rent-free. For under my eyes, I'm going to be using the Vichy Mineral 89. This is an under eye moisturizer. It's essentially just to really hydrate under the eyes. And because I chose two products, I'm also going to be choosing two books. So for the second one, take your guess, I'm going to be talking about The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. Now I think with The Poet X in particular, it was one of the first few books that I read written by a Latinx author in English in verse that accurately depicted the life of a Latina woman. It has a lot of themes in there about growing up Latina, what it means to be a woman in general, and I think all of those themes I thoroughly enjoyed. And beside that, it was the first book that I annotated more so based on my experiences, like my personal life, rather than critiquing writing and storytelling. I started crying from page 5, which is super difficult to do, but Miss Acevedo managed to do it super early on. Definitely not as blood heavy as some of her other work, but I'd say it's that character driven aspect of the book that makes it such a long lasting effect. Now for foundation, the question is pick a favorite first book in a series. For that one, I think I'm gonna have to choose The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. Now, by the way, foundation wise, I'm using the Dior Forever Perfect foundation just because I want something really full coverage. I think it has a lot of elements that I like. I think the world building was done incredibly well. I think all of the historical elements were, to my knowledge, incredibly accurate to the way that things were back when all of these events from the rape of Nanking happened, which is the historical event that the book is mostly inspired by. Not only that, but it also has another element that I quite enjoy in books, and that is a training element. In this first book, we see Rin go into the synagogue to train to be a part of army, and it was really interesting to see her start figuring out the lore, exactly what's real, what's fictional. And then the whole thing with the Phoenix was also something that I thoroughly enjoyed. Although the book has a lot of trigger warnings, I think those chapters that war was depicted in its truest, that's not a word, but in its truest, most realistic way were definitely some of my favorite chapters, and it's definitely one of the best first installments that I have ever read, and like ever. For concealer, I'll be using the MAC Studio Fix Concealer. It's definitely a good pair with that Dior Forever Perfect foundation. I use concealer 1 or 2 shades lighter just to balance out the color of the foundation and just so that I can have a little bit more dimension on my face, and I blend it with the same little sponge that I used, a damp beauty sponge. And the question for this one is, name some fictional characters you wish didn't exist. But I think the first one I'd have to pick is definitely Grace Blackthorne from The Last Hours, particularly Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare, which is the only book out as of now. I despise Grace with my entire being. Grace was such a frustrating character, like such a hateful character. We still don't know the full extent of Grace and exactly who she is. I think all of that will definitely come into play more in book 2, which comes out in March, thankfully. So Grace Blackthorne is definitely one. She has her own agenda going on. I don't know if she's doing her own bidding or her mother's bidding, but she's out here using an enchanted bracelet with Mr. James and doing her own witchy little thing to keep him under her wrap, and I don't appreciate that in the slightest. So Miss Grace has got to go. Another character that I have like a love-hate relationship with, and I put him in this list because I don't know if I want him to stay or to go, but it's David from Truly Devious. Especially in book 2 and 3, David really showed us how much of an asshole he can be. Like, he only cares about himself and his own feelings. He really doesn't take other people's feelings into consideration, and that was just, I wanted to beat the hell out of that guy in book 2. Another character that I wrote down in here that I just wanted to beat the daylights out of is El Cero from Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. Another character that I could not stand. This character really drops themes like sex trafficking in there. Like, it's the most okay thing in the planet. He was just hateful and abusive, crossing boundaries left and right. He was a creepy old man. And an honorary mention needs to go to Virgil from Mexican Gothic. Another character that was so hateful, but I also appreciate the nature of this character. I think he's such a complex character. There's a lot about colonialism in there. There's a lot about race and gender and just a lot of different layers to this character that brought a lot to the story. I think it's a character that I love to hate and hate to love. It's like both ends of the spectrum for me. Okay, next up is Powder, and the question for this one is, pick a favorite last book in a series. So for Powder, I always use the Airspun powder. I'm gonna try and tilt this as best as I can without dropping any powder, but this is the one I use. So the first one I'll definitely talk about is City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare. That is probably one of the best final installments that I have ever read in literature. I think if there's one thing that Cassandra Clare does right is her finales. I think the tension was so built up in that book that when you went onto those final battle scenes, there was nothing but stress waiting for you. It was such a magnificent last installment. I read this years ago, so I really wouldn't be able to tell you the specifics of this book. I just remember being stressed. I remember crying. I remember fangirling. I remember just being incredibly satisfied with the way that the book ended, even though it still had a lot of tragedy to it in a way. Another finale that I really loved, and again, I said I wouldn't really repeat books in here, but I have to. The Burning God by R.F. Kuang, the last installment in the Poppy War. Chef's kiss to that book because I definitely had no idea. Like, I couldn't wrap my head around exactly how this trilogy was going to end. And the way that the trilogy ended was so perfect. Like, I felt there was nothing else to do with the story and with the characters than what actually happened. I gave that book 5 out of 5 stars. I think it was the perfect ending for such a complicated and intricate story. Okay, now we're on to brows, and the question for this one is, pick a book you think everyone should read. Okay, so for brows, I'm going to be using the Maybelline Brow Precise Micro Pencil. This is in the shade, pretty sure this is in the shade Brunette or something. I mean, I think as far as brow pencils go, the names are pretty standard, so it must be Brunette something, soft brown, maybe even just brunette or dark brown. Now for this question, I tried to go with a book that wasn't that obvious and maybe one that I haven't talked about as much on my channel. I wanted to shine the spotlight on Charming as a Verb by Ben Philippe. Now this particular book I read for a book tour and I fell in love with it so much. We follow Henry Haltiwanger and he is a star debater. He is a very popular kid at his academy. It is a private school and his dream is to go to Columbia University. He has been hustling to get there for the entirety of his school years, and in order to save up to get to Columbia one day, hopefully, he starts his own dog walking business, which is kind of a ruse. It is kind of like a scam, and when Corinne Troy finds that out, she starts blackmailing him into helping helping her become more popular at school. There is romance in here. It is obviously a contemporary, it is YA, and it has a lot of dynamics that I personally enjoy, a lot of familial dynamics in here, particularly dealing with immigrant parents and their expectations for the kids. And I just love the way that all of that played out. We also have the topic of systemic racism and privilege in class. All of those themes were so well woven into the story, like everything just flowed so seamlessly with the way that the story progresses. It is such a fast read. You fall in love with the characters immediately. I feel all of the characters are relatable and they're quirky, so I definitely would recommend this book any chance I get. It's definitely a book that I want to get physically to have on my shelves. This next question is technically only for blush, but I am going to merge it with bronzer and blush because I know no life except bronzer and blush. Pick a book with a cringe-worthy romance. Now, it is no surprise that I did not like this book when I read it, and I think a lot of people will disagree with me because I know it is a lot of people's favorite books. It is a standalone fantasy. I have talked about this book in a million different occasions, not talking good things about it, and it is actually The Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. Now, this was sold to me like a new ACOTAR, and whenever a book is sold like anything else, it's got to live up to that expectation. Like one way or another, it's got to live up. It did not live up to the expectation, however. I didn't even know this was a standalone fantasy. When I first picked up this ebook, I thought Sorcery of Thorns was actually the sequel. How mistaken I was. Now, for this book in particular, we follow a human girl who works very closely to the Fae because she paints them, and one day she stumbles upon the High Lord of the Autumn Court, and she offers to paint him, or he wants her to paint him. I can't exactly remember how it plays out. Bottom line is, she paints something in his eyes that should never be painted in a Fae's eyes, and so he comes back to snatch her back to his court and hold her for trial because she has committed some sort of treason. The fact that this character on chapter 3 was literally saying, I think I'm in love with this guy. They'd interacted once before, and then the book tells you, doesn't show you, that they had seen each other for 3 weeks, and then she's all like, oh my god, I love him. And then he snatches her up after she paints something in his eyes that she wasn't supposed to paint there, and they embark on this journey back to his court, and she starts just talking throughout the entire journey, like mentally, like, oh my god, I love him, oh no, but I can't love him, he's a monster, but I love him and I can't love him. And they have all of these cute moments that were, again, supposed to be cute. They did not come across like that to me. It was just rushed. I think the combination of kind of lyrical writing with a fast-paced storyline and then romance that is not even believable, which could be in a fantasy setting, it all just in its entirety bugged me. However, I will say I am kind of interested to pick up Sorcery of Thorns just because I have heard a lot of people say that it's a lot more story-centered. I know that book is longer. It doesn't focus as much on the romance. So I definitely want to give that one a go at one point. Okay, so for blush, I'll do this rather quickly because, again, I already talked about the cringy romance, and make sure that it's placed where it needs to be, which is only on the apple of the cheek, because if I drag it backwards, it'll only make me look a little bit older. Highlighter is next, and the question is, pick a book that brightens up your day. By the way, I'm using the Anastasia Amrezy highlighter. It is my favorite one, most definitely. We're about to glow up to the gods, and we absolutely love to see it. A book that brightens up my day, I definitely have to go with Miss Akomoff. As you know, it's one of my favorite books of all time. Just thinking about it makes me happy. And I reread that book all the time without reading the rest of the series. It is definitely my most reread book. Now, as to why I love Akomoff so much, I think the romance, first off, is incredible in that one. The smut is top tier. And I just think it's one of those cases where the main character fits a lot better with this particular cast of characters rather than the characters from book 1. We truly see Feyre grow a lot from that first place where she is at the beginning of Akomoff, dealing with a lot of trauma and PTSD and just a lot of baggage that she is carrying from the end of book 1. And so definitely her support system is with those characters that we get to meet and love in book 2. And not only that, but the real conflict starts kicking in book 2, which we don't really get to see a lot of in book 1. And to top it all off, there is also that element of like war and battle scenes, and then training, which, as you guys know, it is something that I really, really like. In this book in particular, it is not in a academy setting, but nonetheless, it is training, and the characters are getting their asses beat in order to get to where they need to be. Akuma was definitely brightens up my day and will forever brighten up my day. Next up, we have eyeshadow, and for this one, I already got my eyes primed because I put concealer on there, and I'm gonna be using for this one the Juvia's Place. This is the Sweet Pinks palette. This one is very pink centered, very vibrant colors, and you're gonna see the flare of the ring light. Just ignore that for a sec, but look at that beauty of a palette. And the question for this one is, pick a book that has a favorite color on the cover. But if I had to pick like my one favorite color that I always gravitate towards, whether it's makeup, whether it's books, it's always yellow. For some reason, mustard yellow in particular is a shade that always calls me. We first have Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. This type of yellow is definitely my favorite. I don't know what it is about this shade. Whenever I dress in yellow, whenever I use yellow eyeshadow that is this particular shade, whenever I use anything this color, I am just there for it. It's just stunning. Now, I'm definitely gonna give a synopsis for this one and the other books that I'm going to talk about in this particular question, just because eyeshadow takes a little bit of time, especially with what I want to do today. But Grown follows Enchanted, who is a girl that wants to make it in the music industry. She is very passionate about music and she wants to pursue that professionally, and she sees a very big opportunity when she meets Corey Fields, which is one of the biggest people in the industry. And when she sees Corey Fields, she really sees the glitz and glam of the industry. She believes with his fame, she can truly achieve all that she wants to, and she gets entangled with Mr. Fields, and I believe this explores the topic of abusive relationships. I do know there are going to be trigger warnings for this book. I have yet to read it, but I am going to tomorrow because I have a super fun vlog planned for y'all where I read Tiffany D. Jackson only and the darker side of the music industry. So I'm just really excited about that. It is inspired on true events, just beware of that. Another shade that I have found out I love in books is green, but particularly this style of green, which is a mix of like neon green and then dark green. I think the dimension of this particular book is gorgeous in regards to color composition. This is The Hand on the Wall by Maureen Johnson. It's the third book in the Truly Devious series. I'm definitely not going to give you a synopsis on the third book, but I will on the first one. So in Truly Devious, we follow Stevie Bell, who loves true crime. She loves Agatha Christie, Sherlock Holmes. She aspires to one day be like them and the stories that went really big when she was younger. And once she receives an invitation to Ellingham Academy, which is this really prestigious school that focuses only on the best on their fields. It is by invite only, all expenses paid, and the school centers around education being a game. She accepts immediately because actually 80 years in the past, there was a mystery, a cold case that was never solved involving the founder of the school, in which his daughter and wife were kidnapped and murdered, and Stevie is determined to go into this school, find out exactly what happened, and crack that cold case open and close it forever. I don't know what it is about that green cover in particular, but it just calls to me so much. It's so gorgeous, it's so vibrant, it just calls to the eye. I also think covers like these, like A Very Large Expanse of Sea, which is primarily white with pops of color, whether it's a face, whether it's a design, whether it's lettering, big bold lettering with bright titles, this also calls to me a lot. So this is definitely another cover that I'd be very drawn to, regardless of its genre. And I wouldn't exactly say that white is my favorite color, especially because white is not even a color, it's just the presence of light. It's a shade. So yeah, definitely not a favorite color, but it's definitely a type of cover that I'd gravitate towards if I saw on a bookstore. So in A Very Large Expanse of Sea, we follow a teenager after the events of 9/11, and of course this teenager is Muslim, and she has been going through bullying in her school from exclusion from racism, and the system itself has been neglecting her and her needs and her privacy. And one day at school, a boy actually shows interest in her, but she's very skeptical towards this interest. She doesn't feel like it's genuine until she realizes exactly how serious he is about pursuing her romantically and creating a friendship with her. I think it was really heartbreaking to see something that was so incredibly sensitive for this particular community and how people just gravitated towards being cruel and unkind to people. And it was just heartbreaking to see that journey, but also it was heartwarming heartwarming to see her form this friendship and this relationship with this boy. All right, so I finished the eyes off camera because I didn't want to drag it on for too long, but the next step is eyeliner. I am going to be doing winged eyeliner, so I don't know how well I'll be able to speak while I do that, but I'll try my best. Pick a dark and mysterious book. For eyeliner, I'm going to be using the Ingle number 77 eyeliner. This is just a plain black gel liner. I don't know how dark I'd categorize this particular book, but I definitely go maybe with The Night Swim by Megan Golden. It is a thriller. It deals a lot with rape culture. We follow a podcast host named Rachel as she goes into this small town to cover one of the bigger cases that is happening at the moment. It is a rape trial, and while that case is happening, she actually starts receiving some mysterious letter from another girl who claims she needs her help to uncover the mystery that was her sister's disappearance, death, like many years in the past. And so she will get entangled in both of these cases. Like, I definitely say it covers a lot of important themes, so I definitely like that one. You know what book I could use for this? Most definitely Verity by Colleen Hoover. It's another thriller. It's very taboo, very dark, very mysterious. So in Verity, we actually follow an author that is on the brink of bankruptcy, and she actually receives the opportunity of a lifetime from the husband of a New York Times bestselling author to actually finish his wife's series because she can no longer finish it herself. The mystery here is nobody knows why she can no longer finish the series, and said author will have to go to this New York Times bestselling author's house, stay there, sift through the years of notes that she has in order to complete the series. However, once she arrives in this house, she starts uncovering some really, when I say really, I mean hella dark stuff in there in that little office situation. I think as far as thriller goes, that is probably the darkest one that I have read. It deals with a lot of taboos, and it was pretty creepy as well, which I don't easily get creeped out by books, but that definitely did the trick for me. And there's also trigger warnings in here for like premeditated miscarriage and child abuse. I just have so many vivid memories of reading this book. I read this in one sitting. Like you definitely eat the book up as you go, but it was definitely kind of like jarring to read stuff like that because I've never read anything as crazy as that. The next step is mascara. I'm gonna be using the Urban Decay Cannonball Mascara. It's my favorite. It's waterproof. It really lifts your lashes, especially if you curl them. Pick a long book. Now for this one, I have several long books in my collection. I love me a good chunky book. For this one, I could pick out Crescent City again. It is over 800 pages. I could also go for The Priory of the Orange Tree, is also a good one. That is also over 800 pages. But if I had to pick the longest book in my collection, I think you guys would guess what it is. I think for that one, I definitely have to go with Miss Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. This book is actually 980 pages. It has Bible thin pages. We love to see it. So I'll put on my false lashes and I'll be right back because there ain't no step for false lashes. So, you know, I'll cover you guys up and I'll see you in a bit. Okay, I've got lashes on. It's a cute moment. Now it's time for lips as the final step of makeup. And the last question is, pick your favorite book kiss. Okay, so I'm gonna start by lining my lips because lips gotta have definition of some sort. So I'll do this quickly. Truly, I feel like for this question, there are so many different answers. I think one of my favorite kisses, definitely Chain of Gold. Okay, the Whispering Room in Chain of Gold. If y'all know, you know. That kiss is just chef's kiss. Literally, it's 10 out of 10. From Blood and Ash by Miss JLA is another great freaking kiss. Like, when those two kiss, Poppy and Hawk, I went berserk, okay? Crescent City, obviously. We've got Alien and Rowan in Throne of Glass. We've got Akuma. We've got so many, like, good kisses. Like, there are just so many options and not enough time to choose. I'm kidding. Obviously, technically, I have all the time in the world to answer this question, but it's actually 2 a.m., so I ain't got all time to answer this question because I want to go to bed. Okay, lipstick is ready. We be looking. I love the combination of like berry and pink. But yeah, if I had to pick fictional kisses, it would probably be any of those because the steam levels be rising. Okay, and that is it for today, you guys. This is my full face of makeup. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. I know it's a little bit different. I know you're not used to seeing makeup content in this channel. I thought this would be a fun idea. I know a lot of you have been requesting me to to do the books and makeup tag. So here it is, me talking about books while I do my makeup. Let me know down below what some of the answers for these questions would be for you guys, because I am really interested in seeing, for example, what is one book that you need everyone to read, or what are some of your favorite fictional kisses, because I know there's a ton of romance books out there that I have yet to read, or even fantasy romance that I have yet to read. So definitely let me know all of that down below. And if you reached the end of the video, make sure to leave down below a lipstick emoji, because of course makeup is very, very fitting, and I want to see how many of you guys made it to the very, very end. Don't forget to subscribe down below for more bookish content. I am constantly uploading videos that I am sure you do not want to miss. I am also live streaming throughout the week, doing my weekly reading sprints. I think I have decided the format that I want to have for these sprints, and I think I'm gonna do Fridays at 7 p.m. as we usually do, and then keep Wednesdays, but sprint during the day on Wednesdays, whether that be in the morning or early afternoon. I think that's gonna be the way to go. We're also gonna have the occasional journal with me on live, which is me sketching on my bullet journal or making my spreads, and it's just gonna be chatty, just a time to just really bond with all of you and not necessarily read as we do in sprinting. Let me know down below what you guys think of that as well. And you can also follow me on all of my social medias, which are always linked down below. I have an Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, and an Amazon wish list. You guys know the drill. All of the relevant links are down below, so you can click any of those. And yeah, I love you guys so, so much, and I shall see you on the next one. Bye, guys.